My name is Carol Huynh, two-time Olympic medalist, and I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a coach, and I'm also an ambassador for my sport, the sport of wrestling.
Nice. My name is Erin Woodrow. I am 32 years old. I'm a Newfoundlander, super proud of Newfoundland, like most people are who come from there. I was born in St. John's, so that's the capital city there. I pretty much grew up like any little boy in Newfoundland would have grown up, because I was the biggest tomboy you would ever meet. I was in Beavers and Scouts. I played in an all-boys baseball league. All my friends were guys. I got really involved in hockey as a kid. Being an only girl in an all-boys dominated sport, I guess you kind of start to think about the things like independence and equality, and that being really important to me at a young age.
My name is Hidemi Uchiage. I am a senior national team athlete for Karate Canada. I am also a high school math and science teacher. My grandfather was, at one point, the acting president for the Japan Karate Federation. He was considered one of the founding instructors for Goju, which is my style, in Japan. And then my dad, he is 7th Dan for the Japan Karate Federation. He refereed for Canada, but as well at the World Championships in finals. And so he was a very high-level judge and has a karate association, which is in countries all around the world. My mom, she was one of the 2 women that were first on the Japanese national team. She is a 6th degree black belt under the Japan Karate Federation, and when she did get the level, that was the highest level ever given to a woman for a black belt. My brother Toshi, he has won a world medal, a bronze medal at the World Championships, which when he did, it was the first time in many, many years that a Canadian has won a medal at the World Championships. My sister is on the senior national team as well for kata. She has won junior medals and senior medals at the national championships, and the athlete's representative for the provincial team for Karate BC.
秀美はすごいほら強くて。
Toshi, she said, is kind but very stubborn. Sumi does things in her own way at her own time. She said, for me, I am strong and have my own opinion. If I want to train a certain way, do something a certain way, it has to be that way.
I was born in Hazelton, BC, and that's in northwest BC, kind of in between Prince Rupert and Prince George. And I was the first in my family born in Canada. My mom and dad, the things that they went through to get here and to provide their children with the opportunities that they have, it's unbelievable. Working their butts off to make a life for themselves and make a better life for their children. Yeah, I think they're pretty amazing people. My oldest sibling is my sister Nok. She really paved the way for the rest of us. Wrestling in particular, she was the first in our family to join up with wrestling. In grade 10, I ended up joining with a whole bunch of my other girlfriends and also my younger sister. I'd always be competing with the boys and wanting to overcome that, well, she's just a girl, she's not strong, she's not fast. So I always really wanted to challenge those misconceptions of females. Yeah, it was just a ton of fun.
I was born in Ashcroft, BC, which is a really small town, then moved to Richmond, specifically Steveston. For me, growing up was a bit difficult. Language-wise, English is my second language, Japanese was my first. I probably didn't know a word of English until I hit kindergarten. Just things were different. We grew up in a super strict household. 1 second late for curfew, you would be grounded for a month. Grades were a priority and school was a priority too. So we had to maintain our grades in order to be able to do karate at our house. For a while, in about grade 4 or 5, I would just not do my homework until it was time to go to karate. Until I started training really hard and competing, that's when everything switched. But until then, there was a time when I rather would have just hung out with friends and not trained.
A little tiny bit, okay? So hands are up here. I was in a place called Stephenville. There was an old pair of gloves that were like 50% off, and they were boxing gloves. And I always thought boxing was cool. I told Mom that I wanted to get those boxing gloves really bad. She got them for me. I went back to St. John's, looked up some potential gyms, and found a gym, the Torbay Rec Center. At that time, female boxing in Newfoundland was like pretty much unheard of. But I just remember kind of being totally, engaged and mesmerized at this gym, like full of guys, hitting heavy bags, working hard. And it was just like, oh my God, I had to do this.
I didn't really know where it was going to go. I just thought that I wanted to continue wrestling after I left high school. I knew I was going to go to Simon Fraser University anyway. I knew they had a wrestling program there because my sister told me. When I first got there, I didn't really know much wrestling. You had all these other athletes that were older than me, more experienced than me, stronger, bigger, all that stuff. And I got my butt kicked for the first 2 years, like every day in practice. But my learning curve was, it just went through the roof. I didn't have too many training partners. I had one lady in particular who was an older lady. Her name was Shelley Morton, and her husband was Pierre Morton, and he was a Paralympian who was blind, deaf, and dumb. He would come into our room and train with us. It was really neat to see them communicate, Shelley and Pierre, because she would sign into his hand and all this stuff. She would help me out all the time. We'd wrestle, and throughout it all, she would be telling me like little pointers, you should do this, and I found that was really, really helpful, because sometimes, when you're training with somebody and you're just like getting your butt kicked, you have no idea what's going on. So it's nice to have somebody be like, well, instead of this, maybe you should have done that, and because of this. It was great to have somebody like Shelley in the room to help me out.
The year that it really became my priority and my focus is the first year I tried out for the provincial team. I was 15 and I made the team for all my categories. I went into the national championships and I did medal at all 3. My dad was actually surprised that he was like, oh, you did well. You went to finals in all 3 categories. I did train a decent amount for my first nationals, but for my second one, I trained way more than I did the first year to win that gold medal, and I was able to the next year.
I think a lot of people didn't really take this small, petite girl in the gym super seriously. And I remember sparring with this one guy who was a pretty good fighter. I had to spar with all guys, obviously, when I started. And I remember we were fighting, and he just wasn't taking me seriously at all, and he was just being very passive up against the ropes. And I remember kind of like being in the ropes and then pushing him off and then just coming in with a very solid right hand. And blood went everywhere. It poured around the ring. It was just like gory. And after that was when, oh, okay, we had to respect this person now.
With karate, there are 2 disciplines. There's kata and kumite. Kata is, another word for it is forms. It's a demonstration of your application of what you're doing against a single opponent or a number of opponents. With kumite, it's sparring. So that's the type of karate most people think of. They are fighting each other. How you score a point is making a clean hit without having it blocked. You don't get that feeling with just scoring a punch, even though all the flags might come out. It's just when you just hit them on the side of the head and there's no block and it makes that perfect sound. It's just the most exciting feeling.
It was probably my 4th or 5th fight, I'd say. I traveled to Nova Scotia. I think it was the first time I fought out of the province. You kind of took whatever fight you could get back then. The girl, again, probably 15 pounds on me. She was, 8 years older. She was a senior. I was at the time, 15, 16. And she kicked the shit out of me, like bad, like really, really bad. And that hasn't happened since, by the way. The successes are amazing. They're so high. They're huge adrenaline. But the failures and the defeats are so low as well, right? It kind of taught me that you can't really do boxing half-ass. It's all or nothing, because there's no mess around. You don't want to get hurt. You need to be prepared.
My goal was to be on the 2008 Olympic team, and I was going to do everything I could to get there. So I was still in Vancouver in 2005 and most of 2006, and I went to the World Championships in both of those years, and I fell short of the podium a couple times. So I realized that I was really, I was starting to choke under the pressure. I knew that I had some issues with my confidence, and looking back at the 2004 Olympic trials, I knew that that was a big part of why I didn't achieve the result that I wanted. My coaches were great, but I just needed a change. I decided on Calgary for a few different reasons. The training partners, the national team coach was out of Calgary, and also my husband's family. You know, all those different reasons made me decide to come here to Calgary.
The big goal was always kind of Olympics. That's always what I wanted to do. And at that time, I think I had trained so hard for so long that I needed a break, but I also had these other things that were extremely important to me. I studied, I worked, and I traveled. So I kind of came back, and it was within 2 months, I had a few job offers already for jobs in oil and gas industry in Calgary. Boxing is also one of the things that kind of gets in your blood, and it just doesn't get away. I decided to do two things. I went and registered for a Master of Science in Environmental Sustainability and decided to go back into boxing. And at that point in time, I didn't exactly know what I wanted from boxing, but I knew I was going to get back into it and see what the opportunities were, where it potentially could take me.
We don't hold back. We would fight each other like we would fight any other person. Sumi thinks I hit her too hard, which is kind of funny because I don't think I do, but maybe it's the emotion behind getting hit by your sister. But we didn't really start fighting for the first place spot for the national championships until the last 5 years or so. I hate losing to her. If anyone else was winning the gold medal other than me, I would rather it her, but at the same time, I do not like losing to her.
So I Googled all these gyms, I sent out all these emails, gave them a brief history. I had X number of fights, every gym, welcomed me with open arms, except for Louis. He didn't really, want to have anything to do with me, to be honest. It was funny. I think he had issues before with women or girls in the past and boyfriends and how they weren't really committed, and he just had a little bit of a bee in his bonnet, I guess. I told him I was serious. I told him that I was a very dedicated fighter, and if I was going to do this again, that I was going to really do it.
When we first met, I told her, I need commitment, I need dedication.
He reluctantly let me come and start to train there. But it was within kind of a couple of weeks that Louis and I really started to connect, and he knew I was there to work.
She picked things up quick. She just adapted to everything. She was beating up guys in here. All the guys that put her in, they'd laugh. Oh, look at that little newfie. Wow. As soon as they got in the ring with her, it was different. She was just a beautiful little fighter.
He demanded a lot, but his heart is really, really in the right place. And he's someone I love and I will be connected to for the rest of my life, I have no doubt.
Admitting your fears is a big part of being able to overcome them, because I don't think that Like if you ignore it, it's not going to go away. So Olympic trials happened in December of 2007. And so I won. And then a few weeks later, there was World Cup. Halfway through January, we went to China and had this World Cup competition, which is like the top 8 countries in the world come. So it's Canada versus, China, Canada versus Japan. And every single dual meet we had, I lost every single match. So I came from this ultimate high. I'm living my dream, and I made the Olympic team, and then I go to this competition, and I get annihilated by everybody. So I remember talking to my coach afterwards, and I said, "Don't take me to the Olympics. I'm not good enough." And yeah, it was pretty funny looking back. At the time, I was just like, "Oh my God, I'm terrible. I'm the worst wrestler in the world." That sort of thing.
Financially, it's pretty tough because we don't get much funding. So we pretty much pay for all our trips ourselves. This national championships, I feel like I'm as prepared as I can be. I've trained as much as I can. I'm excited to see what the outcome will be in terms of how the hard work will pay off.
Nice! There you go, Eric. Turn it up, John.
And your winner from the red corner in Alberta.
So when I won the senior title, and that was, where I got to be, that Olympic level, international kind of level fighter. And that was my biggest goal coming back, was that I wanted to make senior national team. Because when I started, there was no such thing as female boxing at the Olympics. So I waited for like 10 years or something for female boxing actually to be an Olympic sport. And then it was a kind of a bit of a letdown and devastating, because when I was at that place, I had made it to the level where I was competing internationally. I was being ranked internationally. I, was at the top of my game. I could have, been Olympian, competed for my country, but unfortunately, my weight class wasn't selected for the Olympics. My category, 54 kilograms, wasn't in the cards. It was kind of really bittersweet.
It's so special. It's such a privilege and an honor to be able to say that I'm representing Canada at the Olympic Games. I had 4 matches that day. My first one was against Azerbaijan, and she was probably my toughest match. Anyway, once I got past that, then I had Korea. And then I had Kazakhstan, who was one of the athletes at the World Cup that beat me. So I ended up beating her, which was awesome. Redemption, and also because that was the semifinal. After I beat her, I was in the final. My opponent, Chiharu Icho from Japan, she was the favorite to win. I had wrestled her so many times over my career. We'd been wrestling against each other for 10 years, and we'd wrestled each other probably 10 times, and she beat me every single time. I shot in, and it actually wasn't a great attack. I shot in, and I had my head buried, and then she was, trying to get around behind to take control points. And then I just popped my head up, and I got up, and I just took her down in this running double, right out of bounds, straight to her back, and everyone was just like, "Rah!" She came after me right away. And so I just, I hunkered down and made sure that I had all my defenses up. And as soon as the whistle blew, I was just like, "Ah!" I put up my arms, and I remember just screaming, and I was laughing, and I was crying, and I had all these emotions going on. I couldn't believe it. I was looking on the stands, and I knew where all the Canadians were. Like, my teammates were there, my family was there. So excited.
When you throw it to the head, I just want you to roll off that punch. Throw it harder to a head and roll off it, okay? I wanted my focus kind of to be on the young women. There's so many more opportunities today. With it becoming an Olympic sport, even it is those 3 categories, that's opened up many more opportunities with different competitions. where that wasn't as easy to see when I first started. By the time I ended my career, the nationals, Canadian national champions, there are more females than there were males. All the international competitions I went to, same thing. Like the uptake for women in boxing is just definitely grown exponentially.
I was invited to a lot of different events and speaking opportunities and just like a lot of different things that was so new to me. So I took a good 4 months off, which was the most that I'd ever had in my career.
Stay at 90, be patient here.
And then I started to really feel the pressure of being an Olympic champion. So I wasn't really giving myself much slack, and so I really started to hate wrestling. Like I lost the vision of who I was. Switched my perspective on it. Like, man, I'm doing some pretty amazing things. I've got so many great things happening in my life, and I'm just gonna go back to wrestling, and I'm gonna take it a day at a time, and my new goal for myself is to have fun. Get back to the basics of why I wrestled in the first place. The journey towards the London Games was really important. I was really proud of myself to make it to that Olympics. Even though I wasn't totally satisfied with my performance, I was thankful for the experience of getting there. A lot more than I was, I think, in Beijing. What are you talking about? Wrestling isn't in the Olympics anymore. I thought it was some kind of joke. It was just so impossible. I couldn't believe it. Like, there's no way that they would do this. The millions of kids in the world that dream about going to the Olympics in wrestling, like that dream would be dashed, you know? It's just like, oh, it was heartbreaking. They got together, a group of 5 of us, myself, Daniel Legali, who's Olympic champion 2000 for Canada, but originally from Nigeria. Lise Legrand, who's bronze medalist in Athens from France. And Jim Scheer with the USA Wrestling. And of course, our president, Nenad Lalovic. Our first one was in May, and we had to go to St. Petersburg to present, to make the top 8 list of sports that were trying to get into the Olympic Games as a new sport. After the meeting in St. Petersburg, we made the top 8, and so we were, then after that, we had to prepare for our presentation to the IOC in Buenos Aires, Argentina in September. It was so stressful. I felt like we had the whole world on our shoulders, all the people who were watching all over the world just like, you know, holding their breath, wondering if wrestling was going to survive. When we finally found out, it was just like such a relief to know that we had saved so many dreams. That's how I looked at it.
It was towards the end of my boxing career. I knew that as soon as I had time to give back, to the community, I had to do that. Knew a lot about the Boys and Girls Club and the different types of programs they offered. So I started to think about formulating this program. But it was really around teaching young women or girls boxing skills, but also incorporating different types of self-esteem, empowerment types of exercises.
In the program, she weaved in a lot of social emotional learning and some body image, some general like pro-girl programming as well that she's really passionate about. So she reached out to us, and that's obviously a big part of what we do at the Boys and Girls Club, and so it seemed like a really good fit to offer that program to our kids here at the club.
It's so easy to not make the time, to be busy with whatever you're going on in life, but that these small little efforts can make such a big difference in people's lives.
Oh, nice sun, kiddo.
Rabbit. I love baby rabbits. That's right. Mommy.
A big part of my story is having a great support network. And, from when I was growing up in Hazelton, to have, a coach that is a huge advocate for women's wrestling, and my teammates and my coaches from Vancouver, and then onwards into, being here in Calgary. And of course, in my inner circle, my family, my friends, and my husband especially. There's no way I could have gotten to where I did without them.
The things that were the best about competing were in the weeds. Like, it was in the work. It was in the 5 a.m. runs, the solitude you took from that. It was in turning off, the gym lights when everybody else had gone. It was in the adventures that it took me on. It was in the relationships that I built and continue to have today.
If I could, I'd probably do it forever. From the years of competing and training so much, I want to be able to share that with other athletes and have them use it and get better as well. I hope what I project onto younger athletes and other athletes is the amount of effort and work you put in is what you'll get out of it.
I love wrestling. I love, even though I'm coaching now, I wrestle and I coach. Like, I'm trying to do the thing that Shelley Morton did for me when I first went up to Simon Fraser University. It's important for people to know, like any Canadian, no matter where you come from or what you look like or how big you are, what size you are, what shape you are, that you can accomplish great things. We're all ordinary people, but we are all also capable of doing extraordinary things.